Have you ever gotten a phone call that changed everything? Before I tell you this incredible story, make sure to subscribe so you never miss stories like this one. That's exactly what happened to me on an ordinary Sunday afternoon when my whole world shifted in ways I never imagined possible. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, and I saw a name I hadn't seen in 8 long years. James. My hands shook as I stared at the glowing screen. James was my ex-husband's son from his first marriage. When Michael and I divorced, I walked away from everything connected to him, including James. It felt like the right thing to do at the time. We never talked after the divorce papers were signed, and the lawyers closed our files. So why was he calling now? What could he possibly want after all these years of complete silence? I answered nervously, my voice barely steady. Hello? His voice came through the phone, quiet and unsure, like he wasn't completely confident about making this call. Hi, Mrs. Foster. It's me, James. Hearing him speak felt strange and wonderful at the same time, like opening a door to a room I'd locked long ago and forgotten the key existed. I remembered him as a shy teenager with kind eyes, always polite, but keeping his distance from me. He had his father's sharp features, but a gentler spirit that made him different. James, what's happening? Are you okay? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. There was a long pause before he spoke again, and I could hear him breathing on the other end. I've been thinking about you for a long time now. I wanted to say thank you for being good to me back then. And I wanted to say sorry. I know things were hard between us, and I should have been better to you. I should have understood more. I was completely shocked. My heart pounded in my chest. James, you don't need to apologize to me. You were just a kid back then. You didn't do anything wrong. But he disagreed firmly. I wasn't a kid when I stopped talking to you, Mrs. Foster. I was 18, old enough to know better. I was old enough to understand that you tried your best. And I'm sorry I didn't see that then. My heart raced as I tried to understand what was happening. This wasn't what I expected at all. I had prepared myself for many things over the years, but never this moment. He continued, his voice getting softer and more emotional. When I was younger, I didn't understand things clearly. Everything seemed so confusing and unfair. But now I do. I see who you really are, and I appreciate everything you did for me. You were there when nobody else was paying attention. His words touched something deep inside me, something I thought had died years ago. Thank you, James. That means more to me than you know, I said softly, my voice cracking slightly. Then I asked the question that was burning in my mind. Why are you calling after so many years? What made you reach out now? I've been through some really tough times lately, he explained slowly. It made me think hard about the important people in my life, the ones who actually mattered. Even though we're not family anymore on paper, you were there for me when I needed someone most. During those awkward years when everything felt wrong, you tried. I wanted you to know that I finally understand. I wanted you to know that it mattered. I felt my world shift slightly, like the ground under my feet had moved just an inch. The walls I'd built around that part of my heart started to crack. I'm really happy you called, I told him honestly, meaning every single word. He took a deep breath, and I could hear the nervousness in it. I know we're not connected like before. I know legally you're not my stepmom anymore. But maybe we could talk sometimes. Just as two people who care about each other. Not as stepmother and stepson with all that complicated history. I thought carefully before answering, weighing the risks against the possibilities. Could we really build something new from the broken pieces of the past? Let's take it slowly, I finally said. We can talk. I'd like that very much, James. I'd really like that. My voice was stronger now, more certain. Thank you, he said, and I could hear the relief washing over him through the phone. I've missed you more than I realized. His words hung in the air between us. "I missed you too," I whispered back. When the call ended, I sat quietly at my kitchen table for a long time, looking out my window at the fading afternoon light. Maybe it wasn't too late to fix old problems after all. Maybe some things were worth fighting for, even after years had passed. A week passed slowly. Then another week dragged by. I started wondering if James had changed his mind about reconnecting. Maybe talking to me had brought back too many painful memories. Maybe he was scared to actually take the next step. I tried not to think about it too much, but I couldn't help checking my phone more often than usual. But then my phone rang again one peaceful morning while I drank my coffee on the back porch, watching the birds. It was James. "Hi, Mrs. Foster. I've been thinking about our conversation," he said, sounding more confident this time. "I was wondering if we could meet for lunch or maybe take a walk somewhere. Nothing fancy or formal, just a chance to talk face to face and see each other again. What do you think?" My heart jumped with a mixture of nervousness and excitement that surprised me. "Yes, I'd like that very much," I answered without hesitation. We planned to meet at a small cafe I loved in the downtown area. It was a cozy place with comfortable chairs and big windows. On the day of our meeting, I felt like I was preparing for something really important. I changed my outfit 3 times before settling on something casual but nice. I arrived at the cafe early and sat by the window, watching people pass by on the sidewalk. My hands felt sweaty and my stomach had butterflies. When James walked through the door, I almost didn't recognize him at first. He wasn't a teenager anymore. He was a grown man, tall and confident, with his father's build but gentler eyes. Our eyes met across the cafe, and he smiled that same shy smile I remembered. I stood up quickly, not sure whether to shake his hand or hug him, or what the right thing to do was. Then, without overthinking it, I stepped forward and hugged him warmly. It felt completely right and natural. "Hi," I whispered, my voice full of emotion. "Hi," he replied with a warm smile that reached his eyes. We sat down at the small table, and surprisingly, it wasn't awkward at all. The conversation flowed naturally. We talked easily about our lives, our jobs, our daily routines. "I'm not the same person I used to be," James shared openly. "I've learned a lot about myself over these years. I've made mistakes and learned from them. I've grown up in ways I didn't expect." I nodded, understanding completely what he meant. "Me too. I think everyone goes through times when they have to figure out who they really are, separate from what everyone expects them to be." He looked at me seriously, his eyes full of genuine emotion. "I've thought about you a lot over the years, about how things ended between us. I didn't understand back then how much you were dealing with. I only saw my own pain and confusion. But I do now. I understand what you sacrificed and how hard you tried." His honesty made my heart flutter unexpectedly. We spent the whole lunch talking, laughing at shared memories, and sharing stories about what had happened in our separate lives. By the time we said goodbye outside the cafe 2 hours later, I felt like something special had begun. Something I hadn't dared to hope for. "Thank you for giving me this chance," James said earnestly, his hands in his pockets. "You don't have to thank me. I'm glad we did this." "I'm really glad," I replied, meaning it completely. As he walked away down the street, I realized something important. I hadn't just reconnected with James. I'd found a part of myself I thought was lost forever, buried under years of hurt and disappointment. The next few weeks flew by in a pleasant blur. James called me regularly, and we texted occasionally about small things. One day he asked if I wanted to take a walk in the park near the river. I agreed happily, looking forward to spending more time with him. The weather was absolutely perfect that day, with gentle wind and warm sunshine filtering through the trees. I sat on a wooden bench by a small pond, watching ducks swim peacefully. The park was quiet except for the sounds of children playing in the distance and birds singing in the branches above Dot when James arrived. He sat beside me, and we enjoyed the peaceful sounds of nature together for a few moments without speaking. Sometimes silence says more than words. I've been thinking a lot about what you said last time, he began carefully, about how things ended between us. I was so focused on my own hurt and anger that I never stopped to think about your feelings. I never asked how you were doing or what you needed. It's okay, James, I said gently, putting my hand briefly on his arm. We were both confused and hurting. Divorce is hard on everyone, not just the couple splitting up. He shook his head firmly. No, it's not okay. I took you for granted. You tried so hard to be there for me, to be a good stepmom, and I pulled away without giving you a fair chance. I shut you out when you were probably hurting too, and that wasn't right or fair. Hearing him take responsibility so completely touched me deeply. I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. James, I never blamed you for how things turned out, but I didn't realize until now that I was still carrying some hurt from that time. I thought I'd dealt with it and moved on, but maybe I hadn't completely. He looked at me with those kind eyes that reminded me why I'd cared about him so much. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just want you to know I've changed. I'm trying every day to be a better person, to think about others more, to not be so selfish like I was back then. His words healed something inside me that I didn't even know was still wounded. I can see you've changed, James. It's obvious in how you talk and act. And maybe I have too. Maybe I'm finally ready to let go of the past and stop letting it control how I feel. He smiled with visible relief, his shoulders relaxing. I think we both deserve to move forward. We both deserve to be happy and have good people in our lives. We walked through the park for hours that afternoon, following the winding paths under the shade of old oak trees. We talked about his job as a graphic designer, my plans for retirement and travel, old memories that made us both laugh, and dreams we had for the future. The silence between us felt comfortable and warm, not awkward or forced. When the sun started setting, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink, I realized how much I'd enjoyed our time together. It felt easy and natural, like we'd never been apart. Thank you, Mrs. Foster, James said as we prepared to leave, the sky darkening above us. This has been really good for me. I hope we can keep meeting like this regularly. I smiled warmly, feeling happier than I had in years. I think we can. I'd like that a lot. As I watched him walk away toward his car, I felt something unexpected growing in my chest. Real hope for the future. Maybe family wasn't just about being related by blood or marriage. Maybe it was about sharing honest moments, having real conversations, and being willing to forgive each other and ourselves. About a month later, after several more coffee meetings and phone calls, James suggested something different and exciting. I was thinking we could take a day trip to that vineyard up north, the one near the mountains. You used to love going there, remember? You mentioned it once years ago. I did remember. It had been one of my favorite places when I was married to Michael, quiet and beautiful with rolling hills covered in grapevines. That sounds absolutely wonderful, I said enthusiastically. I haven't been there in so long. The morning of our trip, I woke up excited and full of energy. I packed a small bag with sunscreen and a hat. When I met James at his car, he was already smiling broadly. Ready for an adventure? He asked cheerfully, opening the car door for me like a gentleman. We drove for 2 hours through beautiful countryside, talking and laughing the whole way about everything from music to movies to childhood memories. The vineyard was exactly as I remembered, maybe even more beautiful. Rows of grapevines stretched across rolling hills as far as you could see. The air smelled sweet and fresh, filled with the scent of growing fruit and earth. We walked into the rustic tasting room where a friendly woman with a warm smile showed US different wines and explained the process of how they were made from grape to bottle. She was passionate about her work, and it showed in every word. But more than the wine or the beautiful scenery, what mattered most were our deep conversations. "It's funny," James said thoughtfully, looking out at the vineyard through the large windows. "I used to think I knew exactly who I was. I had this whole image in my head of the person I was supposed to be. But I didn't really understand myself until recently, until I went through some hard things. I had to hit rock bottom before I could start climbing back up and figure out who I truly am, not who everyone expected me to be." "I understand that completely," I replied quietly, swirling the wine in my glass. "Sometimes we have to get completely lost before we can find ourselves again. Sometimes the breaking is what allows the healing to begin." He turned to me with a gentle, vulnerable expression I'd never seen before. "I'm glad I figured it out, even though it was painful. And I'm glad I understand you better now. Not just as my stepmom from a difficult time, but as a real person with your own struggles and dreams. That means everything to me. You're not just a role anymore. You're Sarah, a person I genuinely care about." His words warmed my heart like sunshine after a long winter. All the confusion and hurt from the past seemed to fade away in that beautiful moment. We were finally seeing each other clearly and honestly, as two people who had grown and changed through their own difficult journeys. We weren't playing roles anymore. We were just being ourselves. We spent the afternoon exploring the vineyard grounds, walking between rows of vines, picking a few grapes with permission from our guide, and enjoying each other's company without any pressure or expectations. When the sun began to set, painting the hills in golden light, we headed back to the car. "I'm really glad we did this today," I said happily, feeling more peaceful than I had in years. "Me too," James agreed, starting the car. "I think this is the start of something really good between us." During the drive home, I thought about how far we'd both come. We weren't trying to recreate the past or be stepmother and stepson again. We were just two people who had walked very different paths in life, and somehow found each other again at the right time. That was enough. That was more than enough. It was actually perfect. That night, I sat on my porch wrapped in a blanket, looking at the stars twinkling above. I felt deeply thankful for this unexpected journey, for the chance to start over when I least expected it. Life has a funny way of surprising you when you stop trying to control everything. Sometimes the connections you never saw coming turn out to be the ones that heal you the most deeply. James and I kept meeting regularly after that vineyard trip. Each time we talked, whether over coffee or during walks or just on the phone, our friendship grew stronger and more genuine. We weren't bound by the past anymore, or limited by old labels. We were creating something entirely new together, built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other as individuals. I learned an important lesson through all of this that changed how I see relationships. It's never too late to reconnect with someone who matters. It's never too late to say sorry, to forgive, or to start again with a clean slate. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is reach out to someone you've lost and try to rebuild what was broken, even when you're scared of being rejected or hurt again. James taught me that real growth is possible at any age. He showed me through his actions that people can genuinely change, that old wounds can heal with time and effort, and that relationships can be repaired if both people are willing to try and be vulnerable. Our story isn't perfect or like a fairy tale, but it's real and honest, and that makes it beautiful in its own way. Now, when I look back at that first phone call, I'm so grateful James was brave enough to reach out. I'm grateful he had the courage to apologize and ask for a second chance when he could have just left the past buried. And I'm grateful I was open enough to say yes, instead of closing the door out of fear. Our relationship might not look like what it used to be, But it's actually better now because it's built on honesty and truth instead of obligation. If there's someone in your life you've lost touch with, someone you miss or feel bad about, maybe it's time to reach out. Maybe it's time to build a bridge instead of keeping a wall between you. You never know what beautiful things might grow when you're brave enough to try again. The worst that can happen is they say no. But the best that can happen might change your whole life. James and I proved that family isn't just about blood or legal papers, or living in the same house. Family is about the people who show up when it matters, who try even when it's hard, who care enough to be vulnerable, and who are willing to work through difficult things together. It's about forgiveness, understanding, and giving each other grace when we mess up. Our story reminds me that endings don't have to be forever. Sometimes they're just long pauses, waiting for the right moment to become beautiful new beginnings. And sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives are the ones we never saw coming. The unexpected gifts that arrive when we finally let go of control. So here's to second chances and new beginnings. Here's to unexpected phone calls that change everything. Here's to brave conversations that heal old wounds. And here's to the healing power of simply showing up and being honest. Here's to James, who taught me that it's never too late to try again. And here's to anyone reading this who needs to hear that you deserve a second chance too, whether you're giving it or receiving it. Life is full of beautiful surprises if we stay open to them. The people we think we've lost forever sometimes find their way back to us when the time is right. And when they do, if we're brave enough to open the door and let them in, we might just discover that the best parts of our story are still waiting to be written. The future is full of possibilities we can't even imagine yet.